Welcome back, everyone, to Merge Conflict, your weekly developer podcast talking about all things in the world of development. I'm James Montemagno, and with me, as always, is the one and only
Frank Kruger. I
That's
believe
you,
that's me. Yeah.
Frank
Hi,
Krug.
James.
Frank Kruger? Is that
Kruger?
like Kruger?
I
Frank
do question
Kruger?
my name at the end of every podcast. It's good to question it at the beginning now, also. We are a programmer podcast, but I feel like we're doing a little bit of internet news lately, also. I don't know. It just happens. Sometimes you just cover the news.
Yeah, I mean, that is what happens. And often, we've covered developer events. We got Build coming up. We got Dub coming up. We got Googlio coming up. We got the stuff coming up, right? All the stuff.
Getting to be that season, isn't it? Yeah.
It's the time. Yes.
middle of the year. What do you call that? What do we call the conference season? Or then beta summer, but it's the conference season leads up to the beta summer.
Yeah, and I'll be at Microsoft Build. We got stuff going on. I'm going to be doing a Maui lab, Maui Blazor hybrid lab. We're developing that. That's cool. I got an MCP talk. I got some other talk on something. I'm helping the Copilot team write a lab. We got a Playwright lab. We got an Aspire lab. We got sessions. We got Maui sessions. We got .NET sessions. We got C# 14 sessions. We got all this stuff. There's literally, when you go to build.microsoft.com, you can go to topic, and there's a .NET topic. Boom. And then you can even
I can't
filter
get there. I can't. It's just I keep getting distracted by the 50th anniversary Microsoft clouds, and I just stop there. I just look at the clouds, and then
good.
What else is there to do? You just stare at the clouds.
Oh, the clouds. Anyway, there's a whole bunch of good stuff. Anyways, you should come hang out in Seattle with me. Build.microsoft.com. Register today. It's pretty rad. I've been on the social medias about it. But Frank, it is episode 460.
Oh my God. That means we have a 500 coming up. Not soon, but it feels like soon because, wow, 460, James. 460 is a very large number, but it is also a lightning topics week.
It is exactly 8.84615,385 weeks of years. 52 weeks in a year.
Yeah,
and
that's math. That computes.
We're coming up on 9 total years, Frank. That's all I'm saying. Not including both episodes. Yes, lightning topics, which means that if you're joining us for the very first time, every 10 episodes, we like to cover a whole bunch of topics in like 5-ish minutes each. So, Frank, start us off.
Oh, James, I just want to talk about my favorite topic, which is Zamron. And nice. Pour one out. I'm glad you have a wine glass, or I believe that's a wine glass in your hand, because although Zamron was officially end of life 1 year ago, I believe it was March or May 1st, something like that. Today's really the true death of Zamron because Apple will no longer be accepting Xcode 15 builds. And if you're like me, and I believe a little bit like James, you've probably been using Xcode 15 to still pump out Xamarin apps because you are not taking the time to do your conversions. Like me, I'm not passing blame here. I'm number one culprit. So this is the last week when we'll be able to officially use the Xamarin SDK to release iOS and Mac apps, because although the product is out of support, it has been working just fine with the Xcode 15, but Apple will be requiring Xcode 16 builds. And there's a few build issues. There are nasty, ugly hacks. Don't use them. Please upgrade to .NET 8, 9, whatever you feel like doing. Pick your favorite version. I'm going to be going to .NET 9 because I don't believe in support contracts or anything like that. So I'm just going to be going for the short-term support ones. But it's a little bit sad. This is the end of an era.
It truly is. I have a nice release pending developer release, so it's sitting there.
Is it tested?
It is tested. However, now I can't go back. So I'm thinking I'm going to finalize the conversion and then be ready just in case and put it out. And if everything's good, I just won't ever update it again. But it's there. No, I mean, I think this is a good reminder when people think of support policy versus being able to distribute an application. We get these questions all the time. Like, can you extend support? Support really just means two things. One, is there active? Well, three things. One, the actual definition is you pick up the phone, you call Microsoft, you're like, hey, I have this bug, you're going to fix it. And the answer is either yes or no, or we'll put it on the backlog.
Yeah.
So, and often it's on the backlog, right? And then, so in the case of Zamron and Zamron Forms, the answer is no. There's no more support. There's no more bug fix. There's no more work being done on this thing. It's done. And if you call it, there's no hot fixes. Things aren't happening. Boom, bingo, bango. Apple breaks something. Too bad. Out of luck. There we go. Right.
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Now, the second thing is it actually like supported from in the sense that I can ships an application to the App Store? Now that depends. Who's your App Store, right? Are you doing internal distribution? Are you doing external distribution through an App Store, right? Are you at your own company? Are you in Kruger Systems Inc. LLC?
Inc.
Systems
Inc. Babe.
Etc. Kruger Systems
pay all the taxes.
Exactly. You got that ENC and whatever number. You got those numbers. Now that varies because in this case, up until this point, you could build iOS applications on a Mac with the existing Xamarin SDKs, the final rips of them.
Yeah.
And then you could publish them to through Xcode or through Transporter or whatever up into the Apple Developer Portal, and they gladly accept it. But Apple is no longer doing that. You need to do it on a new Xcode, which, spoiler alert, the Xamarin iOS SDKs and Mac SDKs don't support that. Now, in the term of Google, it's different. That will probably happen in like August, September. June-ish.
Yeah, Google's hard to predict. Okay.
Something like that.
I was going to listen to you. I don't know why I talked over you, but I don't know. I'm keeping June in my head because that's whatever. But
yeah,
my goal is to just get everything ported over because it's just been too long. And I did mention there are hacks you can do and things like that, but it's just not worth it. The thing I find a little bit sad about it is Xcode 16 is not perfect by any stretch. I always like supporting all the old devices and that kind of stuff. And with every version of Xcode, with every version of the SDK, they increase the minimum iOS version that you can ship to. And in this case, it'll be iOS 15 only for, so if you want to release new apps these days, the lowest operating system you can support is iOS 15.
What
that
is
breaks
that?
my heart a little bit. It's about 3 years old. It supports. So here's the problem. It doesn't support like the iPhone 6, basically. That's kind of the cutoff. It used to be you could go all the way down to iOS 12, but now we're getting bumped up to iOS 15, which is a 3-year-old release. But just because it's 3 years old doesn't mean it doesn't work on older hardware. So iPhone 7, good to go. iPhone 6S, iPhone SE. I believe you were an SE rocker for a little bit of time. Those still work on iOS 15. So it's some old hardware that you can still support. But me, if I had my way, I would still be supporting the original iPhone and that kind of stuff. I don't know why we can't still do that, but reasons. Yeah. It stinks, but Apple always pushes us along this way. I don't get it. Like if it's a build and it runs on your thing, just let it go, Apple. Let it go.
Now, do you think though, if you do have a build that is compatible with a version of like iPhone 4, like you've been shipping your app since who knows when, like, can you go into the App Store and like still get that version of it and run it?
You totally can. You can go download old Xcodes and things like that. And
I just mean I'm a user. I'm James. I have an iPhone 4, the first big one, right? And
6 Plus, babe.
you have a 6 Plus, and you obviously have a build of iCircuit that supported it at some point because it's been around for like 5,000 years. So can I go to the App Store and be like, I want to buy it. I'm going to buy that version that was like that. I just would never get any updates because it'd be out of support. But you could still get it. I guess maybe you could at least recover it, but I don't know if like Apple cuts off the App Store to it.
Um, that's actually a great question, and I should know the answer off the top of my head, but I don't. I know that you can still get the operating system itself.
Mm,
So if I can manage to get this old puppy to boot, I can still get it upgraded to, I believe this one's stuck on iOS 12-ish. I
mm,
think Apple's still running their update servers for those old operating systems.
wow.
Now, the App Store is going to say, heck no, probably.
Yeah.
Um, and this is where I'm adding the probably, and I should know better, but I don't. Whenever you upload an app to Apple, you designate whether the old versions should still be able to work.
Oh.
So, right. So I can say when I release a new version of iCircuit, I will say its minimum iOS version is 15. That's what you have to do. But that does not remove the iOS 14, 13, 12, 11 compatible ones necessarily from the App
Mm,
Store. It's a little bit up to their whim. Somewhere there's a checkbox, somewhere in your app info, not in your info P list on the website, that will let you say whether the old versions can still be used, specifically to support older hardware.
hmm.
I have mixed feelings on that because obviously people aren't getting your bug fixes. This is going back to support.
Yeah.
People aren't getting those things, but technically, Apple has supported that in the past, but it's kind of up to their whims because they don't give you granular control. You can simply say, is everyone forced to upgrade to this version, or can they keep using the old version? They can keep using the old
Fascinating.
version. Yeah.
Yeah. I've seen nowadays a lot of developers are even putting into their app checks that like you need to, like I was installing the Alaska airline app and then there
Uh,
was a check that like literally like when I opened it, it was like you need a newer version because they like obviously hot fixed it.
Terrible.
So they must have like a server check that's like, no, you need a newer version, which is wild. I'm like,
Don't
I
do
don't feel
that.
good about that. But if there's some breaking change that allows everyone to get free
Oh
flights and
yeah.
maybe they do want to have that in their app. I don't know.
Well, I mean, that's the problem. They always make these arguments that it's all about security and all that stuff. But if you have an app that's not talking to the internet, then and it's not writing to the file system, and it really basically doesn't have too many security openings at all, because these are sandboxed apps, and that
Yeah.
sandbox is still running on the modern OS. I don't fully buy it. I think it's mostly just big corp wants to push us all along, and we all have to follow.
Well, I mean, what that means really is probably Xcode 17 is only going to support iOS 16 and above, which means probably that means my iPad will. I have an iPad that's out on the bike, the cycling bike. And that
Hmm.
means, why does this matter? It also matters because, like you're saying, is some people have these devices around. I have an iPad that
Yeah,
cannot get iOS 16. It's just
sure.
not allowed to do it. So it will never get iOS 16, which means at some point in a year or two from now, this iPad
Hmm.
that works perfect, apps may stop updating and or just stop working completely because it can't get updates and server changes and other things like that. And that might happen to me unbeknownst to me. I don't know. And this is one of those situations where I probably haven't been in this scenario before. Because I
Eh,
don't usually hang on to older devices that fall out of support policy. Because my apps, I usually at least get the newer
yeah,
devices that support it. But yeah, that's kind of fascinating to think about that
and look,
iPads. Yeah,
we're both technology people. In the end, what is an app?
barely,
It's a barely okay. But what is
barely.
an app? It's a collection of bits, you know? Apple has no idea what version of Xcode you use to create those bits. If you're smart, you can go in there and just change the bits that says which version of Xcode created this thing, and you can get these things up there. What you're facing, though, is a struggle against a big corporation that loves to remove frameworks and loves to
Yeah,
deprecate APIs and just remove them. I've had apps that just crashed on boot up because they referenced a framework that no longer existed.
news kit,
Hello, NewsKit, our good friend. Newsstand,
newsstand
whatever,
kit. Yeah,
whatever it was called. And it keeps happening. Apple's deprecation warnings keep getting more and more aggressive. There's Apple deprecated, and then there's Apple deprecated. Look, we're going to remove this thing in the next version of iOS. Do not reference this.
yeah, it's happening.
Reference this is at your own demise, basically. And that's why I'm saying like Zamron's officially dead from my point of view, because although I do know how to put these hacks in, I know how to manipulate the binary, so no one has any idea what version of what tools I use to create them. It's just bits.
Yeah.
In the end, I'm saving myself pain next year. I should have done this last year, but I'm saving myself pain for next year.
Yeah, I think that it's a good reminder in general. And yeah, it's fascinating. That's why I do think with this latest release, the one thing I did remove a store kit because I do know store kit 2 is coming, and I do know that is going to be a crap storm. I'm pretty sure. I don't know how long they're going to keep store kit 1 in for, but the writing is on the wall. But like you said, there could be who knows with iOS, whatever the next version is, what they're going to
Yeah.
do. Right? It is crazy. Well,
That's what
Frank,
makes the beta summer so exciting.
it does. Well, Frank, one thing that I was also doing, talking about deprecations, is I was pumping out my final Xamarin builds from my final bits and pieces and days of App Center. So before App Center said goodbye, I decided to go ahead and cut a few little bits
Builds?
and pieces and builds
Get
from
those
it. But
bits out.
Frank, this is a case where it's not all gone. Just some of
No.
it, just a little bit.
This is fun because oddly enough, I've rarely or never used App Center to create builds before, but what I did use was the analytics and the
Mm,
crash support because Apple does collect crash logs. I'm obviously everyone knows me. I live in the Apple ecosystem a lot. They do collect crash logs, but they're not very good for .NET. They're these native stack traces. We have better stack traces available to us. And so I like to use App Center for analytics and crashes. And although App Center officially was sunset on March 31st, I believe, of 2025, turns out, James, they're keeping the analytics and the crash reporting going to, would you believe it? Take a guess. When do you think those features are going to stay up till? I bet you don't know.
I bet like 3 more months.
That's reasonable. It's for all the procrastinators, right? Like I haven't gotten around to moving on to a different analytics or crash platform, but you are wrong, sir. It is going until June, which would be a
Wow.
few months, 2026. So we are getting a whole nother year of analytics and crash reporting, which is good for me because when I'm porting all my apps to new dotnets and everything, I want my crash logs because turns out I cannot be trusted to create high quality software. I need my logs to know what things I broke and what things I need to fix right away. I'm already up to 1.14.2 on my own apps. That 0.2 meaning I keep making mistakes, and I rely on logs to find those mistakes. Like you can have tests, you can be the best programmer in the world, which I am not. You can have the best language in the world, but you will write bugs. Bugs are
Yeah.
a guarantee in this business, and the only way to really find bugs is to have good logging for them. And so it's a real honestly, thank you, Microsoft, because I was not ready to move on to another analytics and crashing platform. A lot of them charge money, James. App Center doesn't charge money. So
No.
I've been enjoying the free ride, the free lunch, and the free ride I've been getting off of App Center. And I'm just happy that the sunsetting death knell have been delayed for a whole nother year. I will move on, but they gave me a whole year to move on. So I'm
What
very
I,
delighted.
Now, one thing I'm not positive about, because when you do log into App Center, distribution is also still there. So you
Mm.
can still distribute your app. So if you were using it, now there's no information about that in the App Center documentation. I need to find that out, I guess. Um, unless that was on a different system. I don't know, but I don't see it. That being said, one thing that is fascinating about this, and you can click on it and see more information, is that based on the feedback, the App Center team have partnered with the Azure Monitor team, and they're building a mobile platform support for analytic capabilities directly inside of Azure Monitor. So that's going to allow customers to choose Azure Monitor as an alternative to App Center. And Azure Monitor is pretty fantastic. So that is kind of really cool that
Mhm.
it's going to be built out, and then like you'll be able to pipe that into Azure Monitor as well. So that's rad. I think what's really funny at the end of the day is that distribute just kind of is lingering around. And then also June 30th, 2026 is hilarious because that's end of FY26 Microsoft. So that is the end. That is the
Right.
last day of FY26 Q4. Now I will say March 31st, 2025 is the end of FY25 Q3. We have like weird, July 1st is like day one of Q1 basically. But it's really funny how these dates like line up with like these quarters, but then like they're like, oh, we're just going to extend it. We're not just going to extend it a year. We'll extend it a year plus an extra fiscal quarter for some reason. I don't know why, but hilarious. I love it.
Well, yeah, someone's got to pay for the server, I assume,
Yeah.
and everyone's just looking at their balance sheets, something like that. Because, I mean, to be clear, I think App Center was always kind of an onboarding service. They really wanted you moving up to the bigger Azure services, and there are plenty of other third parties that you can use out there. But every time I was in App Center, it was always promoting other Azure services, like, you should really grow up and add this code to use the bigger services, better analytics and stuff like that. So I'm actually kind of excited to see what comes out of this monitor thing. For myself, I keep debating like, oh, maybe I'll just run my own server, but I hate running servers. So, I'm having an internal debate, but at least I can have that internal debate for another year.
I wonder how they'll do it. I wonder if like you'll be able to go into the portal and then just say like redirect traffic. You know what I mean?
That'd be nice. Yeah.
Well,
right now, App Center, at least the way I use it, is a NuGet package. So I guess it'll all just depend on what happens with that NuGet package, because in the end, that's all I'm doing. I'm loading up a package, I'm throwing in an API key very insecurely into that package and letting it run. So I'll be curious to see what migration plan they have for all of us. Like if it's a replace these packages with these packages, this line of code with that line of code, I'll probably go for it. But if it's more than that, I might spend a week writing my own server.
I will say I'm pretty excited because I think that Azure Monitor is a pretty great product, and I've been wanting like an official sort of like mobile SDK for these things. That so some light at the end of the tunnel here, which is pretty great. We'll see what happens. We'll keep you up to date right here on Merge Conflict. Just subscribe, register, do all the stuff. Let's get back to a topic at hand that we've had before, which is USB-C hubs and docks for the Mac Mini M4. Frank,
my favorite topic. Are we talking about hubs and dongles and Mac Minis? I'm here. What are we plugging into our Mac Minis now, James?
All right. Well, Frank, I added a link so you can click the link in the thing. So Frank, I've been on this. I don't do this too often, but then I also do sometimes. So I have a YouTube account. I don't know if you know about me on YouTubes.
I do see your face on my TV maybe once a week, so I am aware.
So on occasion, as a YouTube influencer, I get outreach from companies that want to send me stuff to review. This is a very common practice. There are multiple things that happen in that. Just like if we have a sponsor of the podcast, like a sponsor would be like, "Hey, I will pay you money, and you will do this read." Right? We haven't had sponsors for a long time on the pod, and that's okay. We have patrons. You can go to patreon.com/mergeconflictfm. You can donate, get sweet pods early, a bunch of bonuses, a whole bunch of good stuff. I'm pretty reluctant on the stuff that I accept. So I archive on a weekly multiple products. It's usually stuff that it just doesn't make any sense at all for my channel. I did do a spin bike one time. I've done a few other different accessories and cameras and things like that. Light bar, things like that. So I've done some things. And I always disclose. I always have the sponsor button, just a little sponsor toggle, things like that. But two things came in recently. And the first was actually a whole computer. Look at this. A whole computer, Frank.
Someone sent you a computer that looked just like a Mac Mini. I'll describe this for all the podcast listeners. James is holding up a box that contains what looks like not a Mac Mini, but it's a very similar shape as a Mac Mini.
Yeah, this is the Minis Forum. I've seen this company a lot on the internet. They kind of do bare bone type build. So it is a microcomputer. This puppy has a Ryzen 7 8845HS with a AMD Radeon 780M, has 32 gigs of memory, 1 terabyte storage in it. The only difference is it does not have a Windows key, so it's bring your own key. Right. But it also has an Oculink, which is a way of plugging in an external GPU as well on it. So they reached out and they said, "Hey, do you want the Intel version or the AMD version? This is about a $600 device." And I said, "I never owned an AMD device, so let me try this
Oh,
puppy out. I'm going to give it a go." That's pretty good. They're just like, create a video. So I'll do a video. I'll do a thing. I'll compare it. Maybe it'll sit right next to my Mac Mini. Who knows? But then I got an email from a company called Pulwatop. Pulwatop.
well stated. Pool top.
Pool
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 top.
pool twop. Okay, so this is a company. You can see it here on the YouTubes. It's a company that makes a dock, and it has a cutout. You see the cutout, Frank? So you can hit the button.
Oh, yeah.
See
The
it?
button that, so if you hadn't listened to our 50 episodes on the Mac Mini previously, the one complaint everyone has against the Mac Mini is it has the most ridiculous placement for the power button. So, James has a cute little standy
Yeah,
dongle with a
it's a little
cutout for a
dongle.
button. Little
You can,
dongle.
and then you put it on it. Okay, so this dock is USB-C. So they're all USB-C hubs. All of them that are out there. They're not Thunderbolt 4 or anything like that. They get way too hot to put underneath it. This puppy here has an NVMe SSD enclosure. Now, luckily for me, I had a Samsung Pro SSD, the NVMe, the 2280 model sitting around. I'd half a terabyte just sitting around. So that's cool. It was in my deconstructed computer. So now I have it in this little tiny thing here. So you can put that in there. It also has an HDMI out. It has a headphone jack. And then it specifically has 3 USB 2.0. 2.0. And then it has an SD card slot and a micro SD card slot as well, which is also very nifty.
Pretty
Now,
good.
the reason for the USB 2.0, what they say is that it is because the USB 3.0 interferes with the Wi-Fi signal on the Mac Mini. And I can confirm, I'm using this currently. I can confirm, and I have put in my SSD. It works pretty good. It is USB C speed, so it's not Thunderbolt speed. So it's not going to be as fast as the internal hard drive or a Thunderbolt one, but great for code files, video files, things like that. It's pretty fast. And then the Wi-Fi works. So the Wi-Fi does work on it. Seems like it works. I've connected to 2.4 gigahertz. I've connected directly to 5 gigahertz. I've connected to the multiband. It all seems to work. Now, that being said, I turn off my Wi-Fi because I have Ethernet like a normal person. I want the fastest of speeds. I don't want any Wi-Fi bits flying around my face. They're there. So anyways, this puppy, I'm going to be reviewing it. You can check it out on my YouTube. It is, I don't know, 80, 90, I don't know, tariffs, $5,000. No, it's like $90 on Amazon, maybe $80. So far, it seems to be working. And I just used the micro SD card slot to transfer some video of me recording it on my Insta 360. So it worked
Nice. You got the
great.
good.
So yeah.
That's fun. Sorry, you got me thinking. I just remember my uncle used to work for the U.S. Navy way back in the day, and he used to joke. I remember when like the first fast gigahertz Pentiums were coming out, and he's like, "How do things operate at that speed? Those are radio frequency speeds. That is like broadcast speeds. Like, if you think about it, the clock speed of a modern computer, a 2-3 gigahertz computer." Those are frequencies you use to broadcast information through air because they're high
Yeah.
enough frequency that they can actually penetrate all that kind of stuff. And it is kind of funny to hear you say like they didn't support USB 3 because it actually does interfere with the Wi-Fi. So I feel like my uncle just got vindicated there. His old concerns from like 1990s or the 2000s are still rearing their ugly little head. You just can't get around some physics problem. You have a high-powered, high-frequency port. Uh, you can shield it all day long, but some of those frequencies are going to leak out and
Yeah.
start interfering with things. And I think that's just kind of funny. It does concern me is how pathetically weak is the antenna in this thing. Maybe I do keep Wi-Fi on because there's reasons. There's always reasons. What if someone steals my Mac Mini and I need to use Find My on it? You gotta have the Wi-Fi on so that Find My works. And I use it for AirDrop also. And AirDrop sometimes freaks out if you don't have the Wi-Fi on and other things like that. So I do my best to make sure I'm not using the Wi-Fi, but I do keep it on.
Yeah,
So that's
you
just
can
kind of funny.
you can set priorities. You can set
Yeah.
priorities. So it would use it. Yeah. No, it's kind of crazy. Yeah. Cause I did the Black Magic design. They have like the app that you can download. Everyone use it for the disk speed test. And it's about like
Mhm.
a gig each way, write and read. You know what I mean? That's
Yeah.
pretty fast
Yeah.
on it. I mean, it's not as fast as the internal or a Thunderbolt, for whatever it is, but it's like pretty good. But it's just wild. The bits are flying. And
Yeah.
what I decided to do is I decided to put all my virtual machines, GitHub source
Mhm.
code, and my Docker desktop shenanigans. I
Mm.
just said put all the stuff there, put it over there.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right, that's something. So
Yeah, I think I'm actually really tempted to buy one of these because I have a million. We were talking about the Mac Studio being released, and that was the one thing I was complaining about. They actually did bother to put USB-A ports on it, so I am lacking in the USB-A department. For hard drives, I tend to stick with the Thunderbolt. I want all the speed. I hate progress bars. I need them to go fast.
I definitely agree. I will say that is the downer of it. Yeah, I don't know. Like I think that it is for not having to have a big Thunderbolt thing that gets hot off to the side. You
Yeah.
just want like another thing. I would say it's worth it if you already have an NVMe SSD around. I just happen to have one, right? If you
Yeah.
go and buy them, they're kind of expensive.
Oh,
So I was like, well, I have this. I will just use it. So that it was nifty. So in
yeah.
this case, if you don't have one, is $90 worth just like the other parts of it? No, it's not. Like, because else you might as well just get a normal hub for the ports. I mean, it's nice that it's integrated, but like, I don't know if it's really worth it beyond that. So that's going to be kind of my review, my TLDR on the review, to be
Mhm.
honest with you.
Form factor does matter because I still have you have a beautiful desk and I have a spaghetti desk of cables. So I think form factor does count for a little bit.
Yeah. We will see. All right, what's my next topic? Oh, talking about things that come from other countries. Nintendo Switch 2 pre-order update. We got a tariff update. We got a pre-order update.
Mm,
We're recording this on the 22nd. The pre-orders officially go live at multiple websites on the 23rd at 9 p.m. Pacific, midnight Eastern, and or I believe GameStop on the 24th when the doors open there. And they decided to not change the price of the system or the games, but they are raising the price of accessories by about
mm,
10-ish% because there is a base 10% tariff on all of those things. That being said, the Switch 2 is backwards compatible with a whole bunch of stuff, but me, I'll pre-order a bunch of stuff already if I can get it. So I am happy that it's back. I will try to pre-order a bunch tomorrow on it. I think that I'm happy that the prices didn't change, obviously, but I
well,
don't know about the future. The future's weird right now. I got a new light phone.
yeah.
Also, Frank, I got a light phone 3 sitting. I got a whole bunch of electronics sitting today. Light phone 3 that was delivered to me. Now I did early pre-order. It was $3.99. Now it's $5.99, and we'll go up to $7.99. I just think everything around us is about to get real expensive. So buckle up, buddy. Buckle up.
So you're saying I need to get this iPhone 6 working again because I'm not going to be affording any more new devices. You have a desk full of brand new devices, and I'm hearing I can't afford anything. So that's great. As someone who is out of the Nintendo world, and we did cover this previously, I just have a few basic questions for you. I heard games are going up in price. Is that true?
Yes. Yeah, but they're
Yeah.
they're going up in price similar to what's on PlayStation 5 and the Xbox Series already. There
Hey.
is one exception to that, which is Mario Kart, which is $80, which is $10 more than others. It's very
Oh my
expensive.
goodness.
But you can buy the bundle day of, and it's only $50 then. So that's good.
Can I just vibe code Mario Kart? Can I just like upload a
I'm
screenshot to an AI and just like vibe code this for me, bae?
I'm pretty sure. But most of the games are in the $50 to $70 range. But yeah.
Okay. Okay. Well, that's sad. And then the accessories are up, but I guess they didn't change the price of the base unit. Mixed feelings because it is an incremental update, but like you said, everything's just getting more expensive.
But is it an incremental update? I don't know if it actually is. I mean, I would say that like yes, but also no. Like
The
it's
screen
it's great.
res, you said.
I mean, you got a huge screen res, huge performance bump. You got
Hmm.
4K. You got all sorts of new functionality for multiplayer play online with game chat and multi game streaming. You got webcam input. You have microphone input built in. A bunch of the games. So if you already own a bunch of games like Zelda, they all have new 4K booster packs that you can get. And if you're a subscriber to the Nintendo service, you just get them. Also, like $10. So who doesn't want to play the Zeldas in 4K on your TV? So it depends on how you define incremental upgrade, right? Like I
Hmm.
think it's been 8 or 9 years, so it is fundamentally a different machine. So the question is like, yeah, do you consider PlayStation 4 to PlayStation 5 an incremental update?
Yep.
So so
I'll just answer
so
your question.
so there you go, right? So there you go. So in that case, like then probably yeah, then you would consider it an incremental update. The difference I think with this machine compared to other Nintendo machines that we've talked about is it's more of a safer bet, right? Again, it's a different environment. Whereas if you
Mhm.
think of like the Wii and the Wii U and then the Switch, like there's different things that they were trying in it that
Mhm.
was unique. In this case, there are some newnesses, like the Joy Cons can detach and become like a mouse control and thing like that, which is kind of fascinating. And then everything else though is like more power boosting goodness, right?
Yeah.
So in that case, yeah, if that's an incremental update for you, then yeah, it's not like revolutionizing, but it
Uh,
is like, do you need to go get it day one? Probably not, but like, eventually, maybe, it's up to you.
yeah, I'm just coming at this from a non-gamer perspective. I'm not a gamer. So, for me,
It's okay.
form factor is what I consider.
Mm,
Going from the Game Boy to the Wii, that's an upgrade. You
yeah.
can't argue that in any possible form. Going from the 16-bit machines to the 32-bit machines with GPUs, that was an obvious upgrade.
Yeah.
I just feel like, but Nintendo's facing the same problem Apple's facing right now. Technology is somewhat plateaued. So we're in that
Yeah.
space at the moment.
Even if you look at like the PlayStation 5 and the PlayStation 5 Pro, you get the
Yeah.
Xbox, you got all this stuff. It's just more power, right? And how much more
Yeah.
power do you need versus like other services and other things that you can offer? But no, I agree. It's like technology is like pretty far along, man. It's like
Hmm.
it's up there. I mean, it's I don't know what else I need. I'm sure something in my life, more AI
Well,
power.
no, you need to strap it to your head, and it needs to be VR. Don't you want to be Mario Karting in the real world? Like
They
whenever
did
you're
that.
driving your car, they should just have Yoshi trying to bang into you when you're on driving on
Yoshi.
the i5.
That's true. That's true. I mean, they did have the Mario Kart like augmented, where you could set up a course and you could drive around a physical thing and had a
Sweet.
camera on it. It was streaming. I wonder if that's
That's what I'm
compatible.
talking about. That's a form
Yeah,
factor update.
that's a
Cool.
four founder. Yeah. Okay, last maybe thing here. Maybe we'll see if we'll go into one of your other topics. We got three of Frank's. We got two of mine so far. Well, we get time. I've been doing a lot of vibe coding, Frank. I've been
Oh,
vibing hard.
is this laziness or excitement? Because I know for a fact you are a programmer. I've seen you write code, and you have several libraries out there. So the vibe coding is a choice.
Hmm.
Um, is this laziness or excitement? I guess that's the categories I'm giving you.
No. Okay. So let me set it up for you. I want to also go into tips and tricks and all sorts of good stuff in general that I've been up to over on these bits and parts of the interwebs. Because the thing that I've been vibe coding is actually completely um, available. Like you can just like look at it on GitHub. It may crash
Hmm.
your browser, but let me grab you
Great.
a link over here.
Totally
Um,
safe.
yeah. So David Fowler is a distinguished engineer at Microsoft. You might know him from SignalR. You might know him from .NET Aspire, a bunch of other stuff. David has a repo called Feedback Flow. It's a very fascinating GitHub repo. And the GitHub repo, if you go to the base of it, is basically a bunch of command line tools that enable you to dump feedback from like YouTube videos, Hacker News articles, GitHub threads, things like that, right? And then you can analyze them in tools like maybe like Copilot or ChatGPT, for example. They're files on disk. That is not how my mind works. How my mind works is graphical user interfaces that are easy to use, Frank Krueger. So I said, wouldn't it be rad to take the base work that Mr. David Fowler has done and completely refactor it into highly reusable code that can then be consumed into any client application, whether it be a website or a mobile app or anything else? And his thing didn't even do AI. So over the last 2 weeks, I have been vibe coding, which means that I have, Frank, in this source code written by hand less than 20 lines of code.
Ooh.
Okay,
Now,
this is true.
but for perspective, everyone, he has 145 files. So I am curious. I'm curious to hear your feedback on your 20 lines.
11,000 lines of code added, 1,000
Wow.
lines of code left, deleted. Okay, so net
Mm-hmm.
10,000-ish lines of code. So a lot has changed and evolved from it. So the first thing I did is I refactored. I used GitHub Copilot in VS Code and in Visual Studio side by side, mostly in agent mode, some in edit mode, some in ask mode, back and forth between all of them. And I first asked it to refactor all of his code into a reusable class library. Ripped it all out, put it anywhere, very shim layer. All of his command line stuff still worked, but now we had a beautiful shared class library that could do all of the heavy lifting of the business logic, as one would think. And then I decided, what do I want to do next? The thing I wanted to do next is I wanted to create a backend. I wanted to be able to call into this, not from the command line, but I wanted to be able to call into it from mobile applications or from a web application. And I didn't want it to be embedded into the user interface. I didn't want the mobile application to be calling the Reddit API, the YouTube API directly. I wanted to call a backend service. So I then vibe coded it creating all of the Azure Functions logic for me to create Azure Functions for all of the heavy lifting. And I said, well, this is pretty cool that I can get all the comments. I can give it a YouTube thread and I can get all the comments back, but I want to analyze it. So what if I created a GitHub, an Azure function that then use Microsoft Extensions AI and would then do sentiment analysis and overview analysis of all of the comments that were coming in. Like getting the comments is good, but I don't want to take it and do something with it. I want to do something now. So I then had it vibe code that 100%. Again, just like vibe coded it, sent it to docs, did some stuff, did a bunch of stuff. And then I said, you know what I need? Website. It 100%ed, vibe coded an entire website, that Blazor website front end that has multiple ways of gathering feedback and analyzing them. It does all the parsing of the URLs. You give it a YouTube video, it does it, bingo bango. Give it a GitHub issue, grabs all the comments, analyzes it, pulls it back down. And the beautiful part is that I also vibe coded it. The AI returns everything as Markdown, which means I then just use MarkDig to convert Markdown to HTML and render it in the user interface. And then I said, wouldn't it also be awesome if I could also do content feeds, like, for example, search YouTube or look at the Reddit, the subreddit for .net, and pull in all the feeds automatically. So I don't have to go to the website. I could analyze it, click the button, analyze it, pull it all down. So I then had to do a multi-page tab. And then I was like, let me get light theme, dark theme on this puppy. Let me get really unique. Did all this. And then I said, you know what else I need? An MCP server. Just vibe code an MCP server. So I worked and I went across all of this. Now, it wasn't necessarily perfect, right? I think when I say vibe code, I mean that I am working. I'm just going to ramble here, Frank. Just let me vibe for a bit.
I'm hearing you vibe, man.
So that's the setup. In the vibe, people think vibe coding is like you're just like create this amazing thing and it just like does it and it just keeps going. That's not what vibing is all about. Vibing is you working with the AI, becoming like friends and understanding the AI and understanding how the clients work. I think what I've really learned about vibe coding is the importance of giving really finite instructions on how you want things coded. I added a Copilot, a GitHub Copilot instruction, custom instructions. I told it how I wanted my code to be structured. I told it how I wanted my CSS to be structured. I told it what I'm using, that it's Bootstrap, that it's Blazor, that I want certain code. I want mocks. I want interfaces. I want this sort of pattern in my application. And then more so, I figured out how to use threading efficiently. And by threading, I mean every conversation you have with the AI, it knows about the context of the history of that thread. So when I started to do a piece of work and I finished that work, I'm always committing along the way when things are completed in a good state. And then I'm figuring out specifically like when to create a new thread and when to reset the context. Like I'm opening a new I'm taking a ticket off the backlog. That's when I'm starting new threads. And I'm going and I'm just going back and forth with it. As I'm finding problems, I am describing the problem. I am taking screenshots. I'm filing bug reports into Copilot, just like I would in general if I was doing it myself and coding it. And, I got through every single obstacle with Copilot just on straight understanding how the system works, right?
Yeah.
And understanding what it can do and what it can't do, and then giving it the best practices to go forward with. I have also then started to get in this thing of called prompting, not just prompting like to Copilot, but creating prompt files. So for example, imagine, Frank, you have a mechanism of adding a new circuit to iCircuit, and you have to do 20 things every single time. So instead of describing and having Copilot figure it out, you can give it a prompt file that describes what goes in to adding that circuit to iCircuit, what code files you need to do. It's a pattern that you follow. So I created and I've been testing prompt files for adding new features and functionality. So whenever I add a new service, do these 10 things and mark it off across the way. So use this prompt file. Here's instructions that I want you to do. So to me, I understand that it's not going to get it right every time. The code's not going to be perfect. The CSS isn't going to be perfect, but I'm going to work really close with it, just if I was diagnosing it and going back and forth with it. And the whole time, Heather and I was talking to Heather, and I was really in the zone. I was staying up to like 1 a.m. vibing, right? Because I'm just
Having
like
fun.
enjoying it. I'm jamming out. I'm listening to music. Like, it is like I was fun, right? And I'm not a web developer, but I understand the code. I think with vibe coding, understanding the code is important. Understand the changes that are happening are important. Once you start to get deeper, right? From file new, you can vibe code a lot and scaffold, but I was talking to Mark Rusunovich about this vibe code session alongside Hanselman, because they have a podcast and they were talking about vibe coding. And I was like, hey, I took your playlist and I put it into this thing that I vibe coded because I was inspired to create something like this. And Mark was like, that's wild. He's like, well, what about adding new features? I was like, dude, I vibe it all. And the vibes are high and the vibes go low and the vibes go mid. And like, I think that's okay, because if you think of your day to day as a software engineer, your vibes are all over the place. And guess what? Your code isn't perfect either, to be honest with you. So my pro tips are really getting in there, experimenting, understanding it, but giving it best practices. And the thing I've been doing, because I do a lot of .NET, is I actually have Visual Studio and VS Code up side by side, okay? Because the VS Code extensions, while gotten a lot better, aren't perfect in like the errors and compilation stuff. So sometimes when I need to figure out like, okay, what do I need to go have it go fix in the application, I'll go to try to like debug it and do stuff in Visual Studio, and that works pretty well. So I've been going back and forth. But even with that as a best practice, it's not that I even needed that all the time. I just found it nifty to be able to launch multiple processes. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah.
Visual Studio 2022, it's a really good IDE. I'm just saying, like, it's really good. And I've been doing the edits on there as well, and and then a lot of agent mode in VS Code. But it's a real application. It's deployed to the internet. It's behind lock and key and passwords and all this stuff, so people can't get in and use all my tokens. But it's a real application. I'll show it to you after this, Frank.
Yeah.
I just can't share it out. But it's a real thing that I've been using like every day, and it's fantastic. And like, I've been vibing like I did some vibe coding with like the Maui app and the coffee app, and it's really cool. But that hasn't been like a real thing yet. I've been coding and doing stuff. This is a real thing that I've gotten real value out of. And I was like, this is really cool. And when you look at the code changes in the code files and you look at my fork, it is real code. Is it perfect code? I don't know. It's Vibe code. I haven't even looked at half of it. It's a thing that it's working, right? It's there. But I understand what it created, right? I understand what it did. You know what I mean? So anyways, that's my Vibe code stuff. I've been
I
vibing,
love
dude.
it.
I've been vibing.
Hey, okay, so I was a little bit mean when I said, "Is it laziness or whatever?" But what I'm hearing is just making you happy and getting you programming. I think you generated way more code than you could ever possibly need. I think that's one downside. There's plenty of downsides to vibe coding, but I loved everything you said, and I can't comment it on all of it. But I do have to pull out a few fun things that I heard you saying. I love the prompt files. I agree. But here's the joke. We were always taught as early engineers, you should document your process. You should write a
Mm-hmm.
functional spec. You should describe how people should be coding to your thing and your expectations and all that. We never did that. We would keep all that up in our heads. What I love about this whole vibing thing, especially when software developers are getting into it, is that we're starting to document things again. We're starting to go back to the waterfall
Yeah.
technique. I mean, what are these prompt files if not bad functional specs and bad technical specs for how the thing should be coded? Because I think that, our software engineers as a professional gone? Not yet. Because I think we're in the wonderful position of being able to create, and I know I've repeated myself on this, but we're able to create the guide rails, the safety net. We know how bad programming can get and all the weird tangents these things can get on. And so, being software developers, we know how to build those guide rails. Like you said, I want it in this style. This is the file structure I want. Please use HTTP client, blah, blah, blah. You can be as specific or as general as you want. But creating those guide rails is a real benefit because I still watch a lot of other vibe coders who don't have that programming experience and they run up to a wall very quickly. It's easy to get a good rough draft of an app out, but all of a sudden you get into this problem of you ask for a small change and it changes something else. You ask for a small change over here and it changes something over there because it doesn't have the guide rails and you don't have the experience to give it those guide rails.
Yeah.
You don't know how software can sorry for the metaphor, but derail itself. It can really go off and create weird things, and the internet's full of them. I love watching them. But it's fun to see an experienced engineer like yourself using the tool for what it's good at. Because I'm looking through the code that it's created for you, and none of it's rocket science. If anything, I would call all this boilerplate code. But it's a lot. You cover a lot of services, and you keep calling this a fork, but it's a lot of new code here. And it's 145 files. So, like, you could have done this. You have the mental capacity and the
Yeah.
skill to do this. But you wouldn't have been smiling at the end and grinning the way you
Oh,
were when you were describing it.
it was
Because no
fun.
one wants to write 145 files worth of API access. That is the kind of job that you want to get paid a lot for because it's mind numbing work. And
Yeah.
so, that, especially that mind numbing work, it's really great. It's a perfect use case for AIs. I call it boilerplate code, whatever you want to call this. It's just stuff that you're churning out. It's the worst form of programming where you're not solving a creative problem. You solve the creative problem in your head. You just need 145 files that access 13
Yeah.
disparate APIs to do
And
that. And I love that.
And it was cool too, because for example, as I got further through the process, I found myself that I always needed to run the backend service, like the function locally and talk to it locally on my machine. I said, it'd be really cool. What if I just create a mocks for all this?
Mhm.
So I
Yeah.
said, hey, create mocks for everything that exists. And guess what it did? That's boilerplate code. It knows how to do it. So it created interface, it created mocks, it injected it, it did all this stuff. And I was
Mhm.
like, wow, like that's probably something I just wouldn't have done. And I would have just kept struggling, wasting these tokens. But like, sure enough, like it just did its thing. And now I have this like big thing. The funny part is I've been generating prompt files and Copilot instructions. Like I just asked Copilot to do it for me. So I said, hey, you just did
Yeah.
this thing. Go create instructions on how the thing that you just did. Right now, I
Yeah.
need to go clean it up and do stuff. But it's like pretty cool. Actually, like here's a step on how to implement a thing. Here's the 10-step process. And
Yeah.
like it can go figure that out now, which is really fun.
Well, in the same way as developers, we used to dwell on like stupid color theme files for our IDEs. It
Yeah.
really behooves us to take a couple days or a week, even because the benefits are there, of creating fine tuned prompt files for
Hmm.
yourself, for each of the projects that you're working on, but mostly for yourself. Like, this is the way I like to do things. These are the expectations I have for the code that should be generated. And you don't want to type that out every time, it's exhausting. If you don't know how to program, you're just kind of at the mercy of the AI. But if you do know how to program, you can really refine it. It takes instructions well. And all the AIs do. Some are better aligned than others, but they all take instructions very well. And especially if you provide them. So I need to take my own advice a little bit better here because I have a few too many hand typed in responses to AIs. But I think it's really worth our time to create personalized prompt files for, again, yourself and then each of your projects. At least that's the system I'm finally getting into.
And as you're coding, think of it as lots of snapshots, lots of commits, lots of things
Yeah.
as things are going. I want to be able to easily roll back changes. I want to be able to move things. So as I was implementing new features, I was chunking it at a time and I was moving along and then implementing stuff. The UIs are pretty good to roll back changes, but there's nothing worse than being like, all right, I've been vibing for 2 hours and I didn't commit the code, but then I just
Oh,
had this huge refactoring. That's like the worst. You can't roll it back easily. So that's one of my big things is like that is be committing code, locally when you get things are working, and then you use
hmm.
branches, use your normal Git stuff. You use it probably more than you would because guess what? Like it's doing a lot for you. Like I would be like, hey, go implement this new thing. It's like, cool. I just like modified these 12 files and
Yeah.
4 of them are new. And you're like, this is rad. You know what I mean? Like the cool part for me too, as a manager and someone that has a lot of meetings is I can vibe with the AI in the background. I can literally kick out. I'm starting a meeting. I'm sending this huge prompts and I'm like very chatty with the AI. You know what I mean? I'm
Yeah.
giving it a lot of information. Like, here's my other pro tip: give it all the information. Give it. One time I told Hanselman, he was like, "Well, how did you get it to do this?" And I sent him the prompt, and it was like a novel.
Yeah.
Because in my mind, I was like, "Here is what I'm envisioning." I'm basically taking the spec file, and I was like, in my mind, done. And I was
Mhm.
referencing files, and I was doing this, and I was like, I want because this is what I wanted to do. And that is really good. But I've also found very small, very specific prompts are also really good. At doing, it's good at doing big things, and it's also good at doing really specific things. And what I've also found is it's also a lot better with smaller code files. It's faster. And how you can achieve that, for example, is you can either put like if you're doing like Blazor development, you can do like your CS in a different code file, or you can put your CSS in a different code file, right? So you can basically, extract these things out. So like your actual like Razor code is a lot tighter and smaller. Like in general, like if you have a huge file, it's got to parse the whole thing and do the thing. But
Yeah.
it can take a bunch of files and you can go through them all really quick in general and understand the context of what this is. So I really started to break things out. So one of my core things actually in the feedback flow, when you go into my .git GitHub custom instruction, is it says for my Blazor app that I always want to add component specific CSS. It's scoped. I want to use Blazor components. I want to break them out into little things. I also specifically say ignore warnings in Blazor components because it often has false positives. I say make
Okay.
sure it's light theme, dark theme. Like I said, break
Yeah.
them into little chunks and little components. So I'm like, this is what I wanted to do, and it just kind of does it. Make stuff
Yeah.
accessible. Here's the other thing too that I did. I also have this in my Copilot instruction. I say, make the user interface look good. Just make it
No,
look
yeah.
good.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, by default, it'll just be like, here's some HTML. I'm like, this thing uses Bootstrap. Make it look good. Use the
Mhm.
styling. Use the light theme, dark theme, and it does it. So
Yeah.
guide the thing. It's really cool. It's really fun. I'm having a good time, Frank.
And even be specific. Say I want it to look like a UI from Star Trek, Like,
Yeah,
you can have some fun with that.
it knows
Yeah, super
vibes.
cool. I
Vibes,
did
baby.
Well, okay, so I just wanna challenge you, though.
Okay.
Um, I like all junior programmers, it generates so much code. You ask a junior programmer to make you something, and they're going to hand you 10 gigabytes of C files.
Yeah.
Um, I challenge you to now get it down to half its size.
Mm.
I want your next prompt to be, this is just too much. Make this all 50% of what it is. Because I agree. It does work better on smaller files and
Yeah.
things like that. And it's not always good at refactoring, which is not a necessary step. We do not need to do it. So I'm saying this purely as a challenge, just because it's a little bit fun, but also to test the limits of these things. So while you're at it, after you've done some vibe coding and you've checked everything into Git for fun, just
For
say,
fun.
now reduce it to 50% of that
Yeah.
size. Just because it's good to give it more constraints and things like that. And this isn't about code golf. This is so that you can understand the 145 files that it's generated,
Yeah.
so that you have a fighting chance at maintaining it, and so that you hit the wall that you will hit with these things
Yeah.
later rather than sooner.
Yeah. No, I totally
I think it's
agree.
good to give those constraints.
Yeah, like one thing, for example, is like the YouTube API, for example. Like it's not using the NuGet that it could just use. It's just doing like raw HTTP stuff and deserialization, which like you could probably just use like the thing. You know what I mean? Like probably the NuGet, it would like cut it down. Not that it's bad. It's totally
No.
fine. But also like maybe just use the NuGet. Who knows? It'll cut down on a bunch of code that you needed to write and deserialize and do a bunch of stuff and potential errors, right? Because in that instance, it's like, yeah, why am I creating a bunch of models that don't need to be created, for example? But yeah, I'm interested in doing that. That's my next step. That's my next step for sure. I'm in a good place. But anyways, the vibes are high. And I've been going to a lot of meetings of people, how's it going? Like the vibes are good. Vibes are good. I mean, sometimes I go to bed at night, like the vibes, yeah, they're not that great right now. And that's okay. It's okay. The vibes are gonna ebb and flow, bro. They're gonna flow. They're going to ebb. Let the vibes go. And that's going to do it for this week's Merge Conflict. So until next time, I'm Vibe Master over here, James Montemagno.
And I'm Vibe Newbie, Frank Kruger. Thanks for watching and listening.
And vibing. Peace.
And Vibe.